So here's the secret behind how I achieve financial freedom. And it might not be quite what you're expecting. If you're waiting for a get rich quick video, then this isn't for you. But if you are waiting for some sort of realistic view on what financial freedom means for you and how you can achieve it, then stick around because hopefully this is the video for you. Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zoe and this is Words on Wealth. And I've had a bit of a pause from posting. And there's a really good reason for that. The reason being is that I was enjoying some well-earned time off. Whilst I absolutely love creating content, for me, one of the key parts of it has to be that I still have freedom over my time and don't think about content all the time. Just like any job, it has to be something that you can turn on and turn off. And this brings me into one of my definitions of financial freedom and also, of course, talking to you guys about how I really achieved it. So, with any sort of financial planning, when we're thinking about something like financial freedom, it's got to start with a goal, with the dream, basically. For me and my partner, now husband, the dream has been building for quite a few years, as is often the way. And whilst the dream is the dream for this chapter of our lives, it may well change again. It's not something that is set or is something that is never going to be altered. But for us, the dream for this chapter was really having some level of flexibility over where we were and also how long we worked for. When we dug into this and defined what really mattered to us, what this actually meant is periods hopping about of working from different places. So in the last year, we've been superbly lucky to have worked from France, Switzerland, Italy, Scotland, and most recently, New Zealand as well. There's so much of the world to see. We both absolutely love traveling, and we really wanted to be able to do that in a way that fit in with our lifestyle and also our love of the outdoors and adventure as well. So all of that tied in with building this vision of the dream and the goal of what financial freedom meant for us in this chapter. After building this dream and this goal, we could start to work on some of the nitty-gritty numbers. That's the cool bit. It very rarely starts with numbers. And I often find when speaking to people that they get bogged down in all of the investing numbers that they need, the budgeting. And those are important, but the goal and the dream, for me, very much have to come first because they are what drives and motivates the numbers that come next. And for us, it's meant a few key things. First up, it's meant years of saving, particularly for a bigger trip like New Zealand that we were lucky enough to most recently have. This is, of course, requiring a lot of upfront funds. The flights are expensive. Going that far just requires a little bit more. It's not something that we could have necessarily just done off the cuff. And I think that's the same for most people. So for a bigger trip like that, we have been prioritizing and saving for that for years. It also meant we really thought hard in the previous years about things like our base. So we decided to not jump straight into longer travel sooner, but rather establish our own home that we're now in, which is fabulous, so that we knew we had somewhere to come back to, and also the potential option to rent it out either via Airbnb or in a different way. From a work perspective as well, we've also both made specific decisions for this chapter of our lives to be relatively flexible in terms of our geographical location, at least for short periods, and to also be able to have freelance income streams that allowed us to be, again, more flexible and have more control over where we were and when we worked. Now, of course, this might all sound pretty idealistic, and I'll be honest, it is, but that's what financial freedom is about. But don't be deceived, there have been trade-offs. And this, I think, is the bit that nobody really wants to talk about or necessarily even think about either. Let's be honest, it's the kind of boring bit, the less sexy bit. The trade-off for us are things like we didn't stay in five-star hotels when we were away traveling. We also didn't spend necessarily superbly recklessly. We weren't going out for super fancy meals or indeed doing the top-notch experiences that there might well have been. Everything comes with some sort of compromise. And we also don't have wardrobes filled with designer clothes, for example, or a house full of brand new furniture. We're both absolute lovers of both Vinted and Facebook Marketplace. But again, All of those are part of the overall compromise. We're lucky that we're still able to have those things, but everything and every spending decision we make is some sort of choice. With when it comes to achieving financial freedom, there's no exceptions and no difference to this either. For the bigger trip to New Zealand, this also meant we did things like house sits. House sits were a great way for us to be able to be in one place and both be able to work with a desk, Wi-Fi connection that was reliable and a good spot, whilst also having somewhere to stay. Now, the payoff was that we had to look after some cute furry animals. Don't mind me. But of course, they came with some of their own restrictions as well. And being in New Zealand meant that the time difference from the UK was 13 hours. So there were a few tough days where we worked late into the night until around 1 or 2 in the morning, which was then midday, 1 o'clock in the UK. And then first thing in the morning, which was catching that later time in the UK. And some of those tough bits do, of course, make you question, is this the right thing? Is this financial freedom? But actually, over a short period of time, it was more than manageable and more than worth it for being where we wanted to be for that little bit longer and seeing, let's be honest, a gorgeous part of the world. So how can you get to achieving this for yourself? Well, my dream might not be your dream. And also, my dream right now might not be my own dream in 5 years' time. First thing that you have to do is be aware that it's going to be different. Don't go for some cookie cutter dream or sales pitch of what financial freedom is, because it's all about working out what it means for you. And if you see something out there that is anything otherwise, take it with some sort of pinch of salt, please. Because your financial freedom dream, as I say, is different to mine and it's different to everybody else's. It also doesn't necessarily mean that you have all your investments ready to go and are totally living off those income streams. We still needed to work for periods of time to be able to maintain mortgage payments on the house at home, to be able to keep contributing to our investments and pensions, and also to maintain relevant work contacts and contracts so that when we came back, there wasn't a period in which we were both struggling for work or a huge fallow period of income. I think sometimes it's overlooked or forgotten that actually it can be a more transitory period of freedom and not necessarily something that is just this end point in the future that you're working really, really hard towards. Of course, that's one way of doing it, but actually sometimes it's about shifting the narratives into what it could look like as you're moving through as well. So for you, financial freedom might be something more like going down a day of work a week. It might be something more like flexibility of location. It might be something in the future that you're working towards because you want to live entirely off investment income streams, in which case you're going to need to prioritize how much you put into them more now, for example. Often what financial freedom is not, though, is what Instagram would have us believe, which is all the latest, flashiest designer stuff. Now, not all Instagram is like that. Don't get me wrong. I'm very much stereotyping. But the internet and social media can be guilty of making us all believe that there are others that have more than we do. Financial freedom is not about having it all. Financial freedom can just be about not feeling like your money or your work situation is trapping you. So once you've worked this out, it's then really important to knuckle down on some of the figures. Start by working out what your minimum monthly outgoings really are. That's things like mortgages that you might need to pay, any rent if you keep a hold of somewhere that you live, as well as any relevant bills. And don't forget to include things like car, if you've got it, and any other sort of subscriptions. You might also want to throw in there things like making sure that you're still keeping on top of pension contributions and or investment contributions, especially if these are non-negotiable to a future chapter of financial freedom. Once you've got this, you can start to layer other bits on top. How much might you need to be able to actually enjoy whatever it is that you're doing? It's all very well and good having the basics covered, but then putting on top things like experiences, hobbies, whatever it may be to enjoy that feeling of freedom is really, really key. So start to add them into the calculation. If you're somebody that wants to be able to eat out every night or go out wherever it is that you fancy, then that needs to be factored in. If you're somebody that isn't so bothered about eating out, but you do want to be able to, say, go shopping and enjoy whatever it is that you're doing, then that needs to be factored in as a little fun pot. And when you've got this, you can then start to address things like timescales and also wider factors such as working, where you're at, and what you might be able to change and compromise. So make sure whatever it is, you get knuckled down on what financial freedom actually means for you. It probably won't come overnight. It's a period of ruminating, writing it down, brainstorming, having a chat with people that you know and love, exploring what that dream could look like before you eventually land on what it could be. The next thing you need to do is don't have it so set. See it as something that could transition in and out of your life through periods of perhaps more freedom and through periods of perhaps more hustle and ties. It's not that it has to be totally set. And that, for me, is the key takeaway from this video. It's not something that you just have to work towards and slog it out forever until you finally get there. Rather, something that can be enjoyed in smaller or larger doses, depending on what you do with your finances, work situation, and of course, sacrifices to be able to get there.